Michael, may I ask you a question? How do I look?
Hey kid, you look great. But by the way, on YouTube, my name is not Michael, my name is Motor Scotsman. And hi guys to you behind the screen. So in this video I'm going to show and tell you everything about the body and paint work that went into my KITT Trans Am. Show you how this car went from this to this. I was looking for a decent project car, and getting a Project Firebird with black paint would be quite slim. Black paint in good condition would be even slimmer, and as I was gonna change different body panels according to the Knight Rider kit style, I would have to repaint many body panels anyways. Unless you get an 82 to 84 Trans Am, there's a couple of body panels you're gonna have to change anyways. I mean, the KITT specific front bumper, that's for sure. Then you have the hood if you don't have a Trans Am, or a later model Formula, the turbo bulge hood. And then the fenders, maybe if you have a Trans Am, they've had the opening all through 92. Even though starting in 85 they had different inserts. Then of course, maybe the mirrors, not if you live in North America, those were the standard mirrors, but all the export countries got those nice little foldable plastic mirrors. The spoiler, depending on the model you had, they weren't only on the 82 to 84 Trans Am and Firebird, they were in several different cars also, but more specifically the 82 to 84 rear bumper. So at the end of the day, all of these body panels would have to be repainted anyways. I mean, who was kidding? Doing a full respraying on a car like this, you want to find a professional who understands his job and also hopefully shares the passion for a project like this. Maybe is a fan of Knight Rider. No, I wouldn't go that far, but certainly someone who shares the passion and wants to do a job well done. And also you need to realize that it's going to be expensive if it's going to be done by a professional, and it's going to take some time. Because let's face it, professional paint shops, their bread and butter, their daily bread and butter, that's just fixing daily cars, fixing a panel or two and get it out either like within 3 days or within the same week. So when they have a project like this, it's going to take time because they're sort of going to do it on the side. So repainting the car alone is of course a long-term endeavor. But wait, there's more. Because if you're going to repaint the car, you need to do it on a solid foundation. Yes, the whole bodywork needs to be straight and done and rust-free in the first place. And boy, was I in for a shock, because I did underestimate the work that had to go into this car bodywork wise in order to get it ready for paint. And all of that is very labor intensive, and if you're not going to do it yourself, you're going to have to pay someone. And if you want quality, you're going to have to pay this person a good price, or these persons. Do the math, save some money if you're going to do it, if you're going to have it done by someone else, and good luck. I mean, there were a couple of panels on this car that were not in really good shape. For instance, this quarter panel here, there was a big dent here on this side. Well, a big dent, yeah, it was big enough. It went in here. Then there was a small dent here on the left side, just a very minor one here. And then we had a big thing here on the door. There were big scratches here all over the door, and rust spots, and underneath also later on as the bodywork opened up the whole thing. And the big part here, I mean, the fenders had very light surface rust, which is to be expected. And underneath here there was a big rust spot here on the rocker panel inside where it meets the floor panel. Then there were quite a few dents and scratches here on both doors. Here in the passenger side door and the right door. I mean, that's to be expected over almost 30 years. But then the big part here was on the right side, underneath where the fender bolts onto the body. This part here was actually pushed in. That's a common thing with these third gens with places where they don't actually understand exactly where the jack points is, or they don't want to find out. This is not supposed to withhold the jack or even the lift. They would have to go inside further in and lift it up on the frame rails. So that got pushed in, and it even pushed in a bit more here, this part, the rocker panels. So all in all, nothing really that was really challenging for the body shop to do, but it added up to quite a bit of work. And lastly, I almost forgot, actually, in the rear wheel wells I found two rust spots on either side here inside. As I was cleaning up the inside, I was taking off the undercoating, and I found two rust spots up here, one up there and one further down in the front inner side, and that had to be sorted as well. As I like to do as much work as possible myself, I started looking into PDR, paintless dent repair. Basically all it is a set of plastic caps that you glue on with some hot glue onto the respective body panel that you want to take the dent out, and take the respective puller, like this one for instance, that applies to the respective shape of the body panel, and then dent it out. It's something that a lot of professionals do, but it works better on small-ish dents or in dents. I mean, if you have a lot of experience, then you know how to tap it to get the tension out of the metal. So if you have time to get into it and to learn it properly, it does work, but it didn't really apply to the dents that I had on in my car, because the metal was too thick and it really did need to be sanded down and to be pulled out and pushed out with some bigger equipment, or in some cases, as you've seen, it needed to be cut out also to cut out the rust and to weld in fresh new sheet metal. Speaking of rust holes, first I thought I might repair the rust holes myself, because just a couple of months into my project, Chris Fix released a video on how to repair rust on your car without welding, and I thought, perfect, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to repair it, I'm going to apply this fiberglass method he showed, and then I'll be done. It's going to be a lot cheaper than what I expected, but then I thought that's something that doesn't really apply to a car like this that I want to keep hopefully forever, especially not there on the floor pan and in all these spots, because water could still get there, and in time, within a couple of years, this might just crack, or they might just attract more humidity and spread the rust. So for this kind of car, for that kind of application, I think that wouldn't really apply, even though I have learned so much from Chris Fix and I really appreciate his videos, but that's just not a method that I wanted to have for this car, so I had to get it cut out and welded in new sheet metal. Unfortunately, I don't know how to weld. I've never done it myself. I don't really have the space in my garage. My garage is pretty narrow. I would like to learn how to weld at some point, but I think for that I would have to move all my car-related work stuff to somewhere else if I ever get the opportunity to do that. The same thing goes for the paint. I mean, you can't just paint your car at home. I mean, some do, of course, if you do have more space, maybe if you're not really living quite as much in a residential area where I live, because like all the fumes it creates, it can be dangerous. You can create explosions. You need a proper ventilation system. You need a proper mask. Where are all these fumes going to go? Are they going to go into the backyard of your neighbors? So depending on where you live, the regulations are stricter than other places. Here it's very strict, but also for health reasons, for safety reasons, that was not considerable to do a proper paint job at home. Also, if you want a quality paint job, you're gonna sand the car in one place and paint it in another, because you have to consider all the dust falling down. I mean, if you're gonna go through all the work of repainting the entire car, you don't want dust to land into the paint. So at the end of the day, it's up to you. But then I thought, why not wrap my car? I could just vinyl wrap the whole car black in the meantime and keep it like that for 2 or 3 years until I save some more money to do a really nice body and paint job on it. And then I started watching a lot of YouTube videos on how to vinyl wrap a car, and I even got some, I found this really cool website, I'll leave the link in the description, and got some samples, 3M vinyl wrap samples of different black, flat black and metallic black, and all kinds of different types, of 4 or 5 different types of black vinyl wrap. And I thought, well, the material itself is not that expensive considering compared to having it painted by a professional paint shop, and I could just learn how to do it myself. But then I realized, as I watched even more videos, that for the vinyl wrap to properly stick on the car and not to build up any rust underneath, the paint underneath needs to be in decent condition already. So with all the dents and the rust spots that this car already had underneath, even just surface rust, that wouldn't be a solution. So it would just rot underneath while the wrap would be on, so I kind of scrapped that. At the end of the day, the only really good body panel the car had on when it was gray was the hood, the bonnet, and I was going to swap that anyway for the Formula hood, so what's the point? Long story short, I really didn't want to cut any corners on the restoration on this car, especially not when it comes to bodywork and paint. So I started looking around for different paint shops and body shops and paint shops where I live. I live near the Lake of Constance in Switzerland, and well, it's close to the border to Germany and also not that far to Austria, so I had a look at different body shops and paint shops in Switzerland and in Germany. But I could tell that most of them actually didn't really have much interest in taking on such a big full respray project because, well, as I said before, like it's going to take months for them to do it, and it's probably not as profitable as just doing 1 or 2 panels a week, do the car, get it out the door, get it paid, and move on to the next project because it's going to stay in their shop for a while. I asked around, asked different body shops and paint shops, and some of them would only do paint, others would only do body work, and then they couldn't really give me an estimate for the other part of the work. And most of them actually didn't really have an interest. I mean, as soon as they heard full respray, full repaint, they nearly turned deaf, or some even got rude to me. Anyhow, it took me a while to find a really good body and paint workshop for my KITT project, and I actually went with the Scarascia body and paint work in Kreuzlingen. I'll leave a link in the description if you are from the area. This might be of interest to you otherwise. And their boss, Giacomo, he took the project very seriously from the very beginning. I had KITT towed to his shop once I had all the mechanical work, well, most of the mechanical work done, but the KITT wasn't roadworthy. There was no seat in it and anything, and the front was missing. But it was the perfect moment to actually look at all the rust spots since a couple of panels had been removed. And he took it very seriously, gave me a good estimate of what work he was expecting to do for the body work and for the paint shop. And since they had both body and paint work in the same house, they were able to give me all of that in one go. So we agreed on a price range, and I left KITT with him. And as you could see, and you probably have seen in the previous videos already, that I couldn't have been happier with choosing them because they did really an amazing job. Also, Giacomo told me I could come anytime and check on the progress of KITT, which is what I did quite frequently. And sometimes, for instance, they would even have questions. For instance, the matter of the fenders. Obviously, I didn't have the Trans Am fenders, so I bought reproduction Trans Am fenders with the openings, so I could put the insert in. But they didn't quite align properly because they were reproduction fenders and not original ones. And also from shipping, I think they got a little bit warped and they had a couple of dents here in the front. All things you could fix, but at the end of the day, the body shop said that it would probably be easier and less labor intensive to keep the original factory fenders and cut open the hole here for the inserts. So I told them, okay, if you think you can do it, go ahead, cut them up, cut the fenders up, and do your magic. But it is not that straightforward because these openings here, they have to be done at the exact position, at a specific position, because if you have the side moldings here, the 82 to 84, they go up just about here over this and below this line here. So that needs to work out properly, and also the lines are not straight; they kind of slightly have a shape to it. So you need to cut them in the exact same position, and then you need to do the indentation to cut out so that this can kind of dip in, and it needs to be flush with the rest of the body. See here, this needs to be exactly flush with the body. Let me see if I can show you. And that's not that easy. I mean, I have seen other replicas where they've just simply cut open the fenders and put the inserts here on top of it, but it would stick out a couple of millimeters. So because these fender vent inserts are aftermarket ones, they are fiberglass aftermarket inserts from KRW, and they don't have the clips, the mounting clips on it, like the factory ones have to clip into the fenders. So but the body shop had to come up with some solution to hold them in place. So what they did, they did the indentation here with the metal, but they left a little bit in each corner so they could drill a hole and then fiberglass in 4 screws, 1 in each corner, to bolt them onto the fenders. So if for whatever reason I would have to take them out, take the fender out, or just reach behind it and bolt out these screws so I can take out the fender vent. And last but not least, you can see the wire mesh here, which is similar to what you would see in the factory insert, but these didn't have one. That was actually closed. It was just an out of the mold fiberglass piece. So the body shop, they actually cut it open in the back and got some wire mesh, painted that black. Well, actually no, they just glued it on and it got painted black together with the entire body panel, or just with the fender vent at the end. I think I got something here that pretty much looks like it came from the factory. Has the same dimension, has the same shape, has the same features. Could you tell that this is not a factory Trans Am fender with the fender vent insert? Let me know in the comments. Alright, the body shop guys got to work and they fixed all the problems. So let's count them down. The dented right quarter panel, the dents and rust on the driver's side door, the minor dent in the left quarter panel, the pushed in right rocker panel, the driver's side floor panel and the rocker panel area, and a couple of rust holes on either sides in the rear wheel wells. So bit by bit, the bodywork guys got everything done. I mean, they said it wasn't the most difficult, the most challenging work they've ever done, but there were just quite a few things to do, smaller things and bigger-ish things to do, and if you can't spend the whole day and the whole week on the same project in and out, it's just going to take weeks, or in this case, months. So once they got done, they gave it over to the paint shop guys in the paint department. Said that the car didn't really actually have any lines anymore because all of the dents and things that had accumulated over the years. It didn't really have a nice line through the middle of the car and even over the fenders on either side. So that is something that will certainly come in handy, like to have the proper eye of a professional painter to give this car back the nice lines that it had from the factory, or even make it nicer if possible. And eventually KITT's iconic hood had arrived from the US. Yes, I ordered this one from the US, and I still hadn't received it by the time lots of bodywork had been done, but by the time the car was ready to go into paint or to paint preparation, the hood had arrived, so they could test fit it. They also test fitted, of course, the front bumper I got from Night Passions, and they really had to do very little sanding, only here on this side. I mean, they did have to, obviously I did that already beforehand, to drill the holes for the bolts that mount onto the fender, and they did have to sand it down a little bit on the side, but the lines really continue the lines of the fender. In the beginning, this bumper came with the grills, the metal grills. I did take them out so I could properly insert all the lights that I built in here, because the way I set it up and the way it has to be set up here by law in Switzerland, indicators, the daytime running lights and the fog lights had to come out a little bit further, so there wasn't really any room for the grill bars to stay in there, so I had to take them out, which made the whole front bumper a lot lighter, because the paint shop actually installed additional bars inside to hold the front bumper to the inner metal bumper. But now that I took them out, it's actually quite light and it wouldn't need that reinforcement, but it's good to have. Here's what I mean with the nice lines. I mean, this is the Night Passions second season front bumper, and you can see that the factory lines here from the fender completely continue into the bumper. I mean, of course they did add a little bit of bonder or filling in here and did sand it down, but it really wasn't much, and the lines are really nice. Also here on the other side, I have to say they did a fantastic job on this car. I did keep the plastic here for the radiator, so that the air duct here, that the air gets actually channeled into the radiator when you drive. If you're just gonna have a show car, maybe you don't need it, because it wasn't like this on the show, but this is how it comes from the factory. And if you have the tow bar on, you probably won't want to have that either, because, well, you can't really install a tow bar with this plastic cover on. But as I'm driving my car on nice Sundays, weekends, or sometimes even during the week, I wanted to keep this, definitely to keep the car cool. And then one other detail, as I mentioned, the body shop added some metal bracing. I popped the headlights so you can look in here. At the very end, there's an L bracket attached to the inner bumper here, and on the other side, the other end, it attaches to the mounting point here between the bumper and the fender. They did that on both sides, just so you could more easily cope with the additional weight of the grill bars here in the front bumper, but since I took the grill bus out, now it's quite light, but it's just an additional structural support on here. My bumper is slightly holding on to this slam plate here. Just, well, there's maybe just half a centimeter, maybe just 5 millimeters. It's touching on there, and so I actually put, maybe you can see it if I take the lens out. I put some rubber down on the slam tray so that the bumper wouldn't actually rub on the metal of the slam plate. I didn't want to rub it on the metal. Also, the rubber would help with all the vibration, it wouldn't scratch and it wouldn't damage anything. So that's just a bit more, all these little details that you look into that will be different on each car depending on how you want to build it. And of course, I'm not sure if I mentioned it before in a previous video, but if you have the 82 to 90 model year cars, you have these headlights, and there is usually a lip here from factory which you're gonna have to trim down to pass this edge here from the KITT front bumper. Whether you have like the second, third season one with this slight indentation, or even the fourth season one with this, which is all straight and flush. In both situations, you're gonna have to trim down this lip. I cut it and then I sanded and painted the whole piece here, the whole plastic bezel here in flat black paint. So the boys got to work and started sanding and prepping the whole car and filling and bonding and whatever. No, not bonding, but just filler. I mean, all the side, if you look at the shots I'm blending in now of when they were working on it, the car pretty much looked like a military camouflage kit. Really cool. You could have just spray painted it with clear like this maybe. No, it needs to be black. Meanwhile, I removed all the old weather stripping here from the door, this seal here, and then obviously also the weather stripping of the T-top. I removed those so the whole car could be completely repainted underneath. Also, some people just kind of covered that up, but since I was going to have a full respray, I thought it was better to remove everything, to put new seals in. Also had to remove this T-top bar. I did sand that down myself and repaint this flat black, and also in behind here you have these seals are in here, you have kind of rails, like metal rails that hold the T-top seal, the weather strip seal in here. One here on the B pillar on either side, not on this side though. And I sanded them down. I got rid of all the old glue that was in there. I sanded them down and repainted them flat black. Back at the paint shop, they were making very serious progress. They actually undercoated and also painted the entire undercarriage, and here the wheel wells as well, as you might have seen before also in some of my previous clips. The entire undercarriage has been undercoated and also painted in the exact same color as the body itself. This brings me to the next point, the color code of the paint. Well, funny you should ask, because I've been in 3rd Gen and Knight Rider forums for a number of years, and every time the subject of the color comes up, so many people drop in a comment as to, well, it should be some kind of BMW, some kind of Mercedes-Benz black, slightly purple, slightly brown, slightly something, but I've never heard or written of anyone just mentioning the original black that KITT came from the factory. Maybe I might not have read it, but I've just couldn't come across that. So I looked up the original factory color code of what KITT came with, like the standard black that KITT had from the factory, the Trans Am, which is this. Please correct me in the comments if it isn't that one, but this is what I came up googling it on different sources. And then I went to obviously the paint shop. I asked them, like, is there a way to find out that color code so that you can paint it that way? And they had all the different files for GM North America, and they could find that color code. And we compared it with another one which was slightly metallic, but I didn't want to. Like, I mean, obviously metallic you won't see all the little swirls or the little scratches as easily as you would with this standard gloss black, but I really did want to go with this really deep gloss black that KITT had, because I mean, at the end of the day, I drive the car in dry weather. I don't drive it that much also, and it's always clean, and I'm going to polish it soon. So this is the color code I wanted to go with, because that's, in my opinion, the most screen accurate, even though the rest of the car is not that screen accurate, but this is what I went with, and I'm really happy with it. And eventually it was finally time to get KITT to primer, and they laid the first coats of primer on KITT, and already it looked amazing. Look, to have like this one nice clean lines, one color, to see KITT with this close to being completed. I mean, they took out the windshield also to clean and paint everything in the last little details. And then a couple of days later, they could actually lay the coats, 2 coats of paint and 2 coats of clear coats in. And then when Giacomo sent me the pictures of the paint booth when KITT was painted, I could not believe it. Finally, after, like, all in all, KITT stayed almost 6 months at the body and paint shop. Well, that's not because they had to work 6 months on it. It's just because they did it on the side, and obviously they had lots of other works to do, and just bit by bit it all came together. And once I saw KITT in black, that was just amazing. And then they assembled all the body panels back together once it was all painted and dry, and I came in later to install or help install them the weather stripping of the T-tops. They had already installed the weather strip of the doors and brought in all the missing pieces for the T-tops, and we assembled that one together. So when it comes to installing the weather stripping, here's a couple of tips I can pass on. Basically, before you install the T-top bar, add some sealant underneath here, both on the front, going from left to right, and the rear here, just to properly seal what's underneath this, in case water would, well, so that water doesn't get underneath between this T-top plate and the frame that's underneath. And then add some sealant also here in all the corners, everywhere basically that water could seep in. Just put it in so that you prevent from water getting into the system. In here in the corners on either side, back here too. And when you do install the weather stripping, like I had it glued in with some well, glue basically that stays a little bit subtle also when it dries, because with the heat and the cold, all the temperature changes, the rubber is going to expand and retract itself a little bit, so the glue itself also needs to move with that rubber. And then once it was installed, the body shop also put a little bit of sealant in here, just to basically really tighten this up and prevent from water really going into deep in here. One other important area to put some sealant in is in behind the rubber here. There's a bridge. There's a bridge behind the 2 metal frames here and there. So in here there's a bridge. So behind the rubber actually they put some sealant in. You can maybe see it here a little bit also, so that no water would seep in here, because basically I think that's what caused all the rust on this side of the car, that water got into the T-tops, leaking T-tops, maybe here, maybe also there, and into the door, and from the door down into the rocker panels and the floor pans. And one thing you might do also when you get new weather stripping for the T-top, remember to get a new set also for the rubber that's actually on the T-top glass as well. Otherwise it won't match here. First I left the old one. I didn't realize that there was actually a gap, because it didn't match with the rubber that was on the frame. So there was a gap here, and there was a gap on either side. And also the rubber, with the years they shrink, so obviously there would be a gap. So I just got a new one. It's very easy to replace, to get in there and to swap these rubbers out, and then you're watertight, hopefully. And of course, don't be afraid if when you put the T-top in for the first time it's quite hard, because the rubber is still very thick and it hasn't adapted yet to the T-top glass getting pressed in. So you might have some difficulties really putting the glass in. Obviously do make sure that you push the rubber all the way into the corners and that it's properly aligned. But if it's kind of hard in the beginning and that the glass will almost pop out once you open up the glass release, that's normal, but it will sink in with time. Anyhow, I couldn't be happier as to how this body and paint work came out. A huge shout out to Giacomo and his team. I can highly recommend them, and I know that's not an easy thing to do. You bring your car to a paint shop and expect a perfect job, but as I said, I've been in the hobby or in the forums also for a number of years, and I've seen quite a few fellow replica builders that have been disappointed, lost lots of money because they kind of gave their car to supposedly good paint shops and body shop professionals, and they were very disappointed and they had to get it redone and they lost a lot of money in the process. So it's not it's not that straightforward, and I'm very grateful that I found Giacomo and his team, that they did such a good job, and I can, as I said, I can highly recommend them. If you're in the area, check them out. And this concludes the story of how the body and paint work got done on my KITT Trans Am. I hope I was able to provide you some valuable information along this video. Please like and consider subscribing if you haven't already. There are still a few more episodes coming about the KITT Trans Am, and after that, who knows? Thank you very much for watching and stay tuned. So who was I kidding? I mean, doing a full respray on a car like this, you need to find a professional who understands his job, also someone likely who shares the passion. There's the train,